The studio was supposed to be calm, controlled, predictable. Bright lights, polished floors, a carefully timed rundown, everything about the live broadcast had been designed to feel safe. This wasn't meant to be one of those nights. Not the kind that spiraled out of control. Not the kind people would replay, analyze, and talk about for days. And yet, something in the air felt different. Can Yaman sat in his chair, shoulders relaxed at first glance, posture confident, the familiar public version of him firmly in place. The charming smile. The steady gaze. The man audiences had seen hundreds of times before. The man who knew how to handle interviews, cameras, applause. But those who watched closely noticed it almost immediately. His smile didn't fully reach his eyes. Every time the host mentioned the past, his jaw tightened just slightly. Every time the conversation drifted toward relationships, he shifted in his seat, as if something beneath the surface was beginning to stir, something he had spent years keeping under control. The host sensed it too. She didn't rush. She didn't push. She let the silence do the work. The broadcast flowed easily at first. They talked about projects, success, international fame, the pressure of being constantly watched. Ken answered smoothly, professionally. The audience laughed when expected, applauded on cue. Everything moved exactly as planned. Until it didn't. The host glanced down at her cards, hesitated, then looked back up at him, cautious now. Can, she said gently, people see you as incredibly strong. Almost untouchable. But is there someone who ever made you feel the opposite? The question hung in the air. For half a second, nothing changed. Then everything did. Ken blinked. Once. Twice. His breathing shifted. He looked away from the host, away from the cameras, toward a point above the audience, as if searching for balance. The silence stretched. Live television hates silence. But this time, no one interrupted, because something real was happening. Ken swallowed hard. His fingers tightened around the edge of the chair. There are moments, he began, voice lower now, that change you. And you don't realize how much they changed you, until years later. The audience quieted completely. You move on. You work. You grow. You tell yourself you're fine. But some people, they stay. Even when they're not there anymore. His eyes glistened. At first, some blamed the lights. Then the camera cut closer. And the truth became impossible to ignore. Can Yaman was fighting emotion. A murmur rippled through the audience. Online, comments multiplied in real time. Is he okay? Who is he talking about? The host asked softly, are you talking about Demet? The name landed like glass shattering. Ken didn't answer immediately. He inhaled deeply, shakily, and nodded once. Just once. The studio froze. Millions watching leaned closer. He raised a hand to his face, trying to regain control, but a tear had already escaped. I didn't plan to talk about this, he said, voice breaking. But some truths don't wait for permission. From that moment on, nothing could be taken back. I don't talk about her, he continued quietly. Not because I don't care. But because when I do, it's never just words. The host asked what everyone had wondered for years. Why the silence? Why now? Because silence felt safer, Ken admitted. Because if I spoke, I'd have to admit things I wasn't ready to face. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. When everything happens fast, you think love will wait for you. You think there will be another chance. But life doesn't work like that. Online, clips spread instantly. This wasn't PR. This was pain. Do you regret it? The host asked. Yes, Ken said. I regret the timing. I regret the fear. I regret thinking I had more time. He looked directly into the camera. I was strong on the outside. Inside, I was running. From feelings that scared me. From a future I didn't know how to protect. Another tear fell. He didn't stop it. I thought silence was respectful, he said. I didn't realize it could be hurtful. The host asked if Demet ever knew. I think she felt it, he replied. But feeling something and hearing it out loud, they're not the same. Then came the question that changed everything. If she were watching right now, what would you want her to know? Can went still. Saying it meant there was no way back. I don't know if I have the right to say anything anymore, he said. But there are things that stay unfinished. He looked up again. If Demet is watching, I want her to know the silence was never emptiness. He paused, voice shaking. It was fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of loving someone so deeply that losing them would change me forever. Tears fell freely now. I thought stepping back was strength, he said. Protecting my career, my image. I was wrong. Loving her didn't make me weak, he admitted. Walking away from that honesty is what broke me. For a long time I told myself she was better off without the chaos of my life. But the truth is, I was protecting myself. His shoulders slumped, lighter now, exposed. If I ever made her doubt herself, he whispered, I want her to know it was never because she wasn't enough. The host asked how he felt now. Exposed, he said. But lighter. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a second chance. I just needed the truth to exist. He looked straight into the camera, eyes wet, voice breaking completely. The truth is, I loved her in a way I didn't know how to handle back then. The studio was silent. And then came the question no one was ready for. Do you still love her? Ken closed his eyes. And in that pause, the entire world waited. The question hung in the air like a held breath. Do you still love her? For a moment, Can Yaman didn't move at all. His eyes closed slowly, not in avoidance, but in surrender. As if the answer had always been there, waiting, and all that was left was the courage to stop pretending it wasn't. The studio was silent in a way live television rarely allows. No coughs. No shifting chairs. Even the audience seemed frozen, afraid that the smallest sound might shatter something fragile and irreversible. Ken inhaled deeply. When he opened his eyes again, there was no performance left in them. Yes, he said. One word. Bare. Unfiltered. Final. The reaction was immediate. A wave of shock rippled through the room. Somewhere in the audience, someone gasped softly. The host blinked, visibly shaken, not by the answer itself, but by how openly it had been given. Yes, he repeated, quieter now. But not in the way people expect. He wiped his face quickly, embarrassed by the tears he could no longer control, yet unwilling to hide them anymore. I don't love her with expectations, he said. Not with demands. Not with plans. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I love her with respect. With memory. With the part of me that became who it is because of her. The sentence landed heavier than any dramatic declaration ever could. The host leaned forward. What does that mean? She asked softly. It means, Ken replied, that some loves don't disappear. They change shape. They become quieter. But they don't stop being real. Tears slipped down again, and this time he didn't wipe them away. I don't wake up every day thinking about her, he admitted. But when something important happens, when I'm honest with myself, she's there. He placed a hand over his chest. Here. The audience wasn't just watching anymore. They were witnessing a man publicly accepting a truth he had denied himself for years. Social media exploded in real time. Clips flooded timelines. Headlines formed instantly, confession, tears, live. The host asked the one question that could no longer be avoided. Do you think she knows now? Ken looked straight into the camera. If she's watching, he said quietly, she knows. A pause. And if she's not, he added, voice breaking again, then at least the truth finally exists. The red light on the camera blinked. The segment was supposed to end. But no one rushed it. Everyone in that studio understood this wasn't just a viral moment, it was the closing of a chapter left open for far too long. Then the cameras went dark. Music filled the studio, artificial and misplaced. The broadcast cut away, but the weight of the moment didn't. Can remained seated, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes still glassy. The adrenaline faded, leaving something quieter and heavier behind. Are you okay? The host asked off-air. I think so, Ken replied softly. I just didn't expect to say it out loud. A production assistant handed him water. His hand trembled slightly as he took the glass. Behind the scenes, the control room erupted. Phones buzzed nonstop. Producers stared at screens as metrics climbed at an impossible speed. This is everywhere, someone whispered. And it was. Within minutes, clips circulated across platforms. Headlines were pushed as breaking news. Comment sections filled with disbelief, emotion, hope, and confusion. Some wrote that it was real love. Others asked what this meant for Demet. Most agreed on one thing, this couldn't be faked. Ken stood slowly and walked off set. Crew members watched him differently now, not as a star, but as a man who had just exposed something deeply human. In the hallway, away from the lights, he stopped for a moment and closed his eyes. Because somewhere, at home, on a phone screen, alone or surrounded by people, Demet might have been watching. He hadn't done this for headlines. He hadn't done it for sympathy. He had done it because the truth demanded to be spoken, even if it changed nothing. Or everything. Across borders and time zones, fans asked the same question quietly. Will she respond? Demet Özdemir remained silent. No post. No story. No statement. And that silence felt louder than any words. Those who knew her understood she never reacted impulsively. When she spoke, it was because she chose her moment carefully. Late that night, as Ken left the studio, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He didn't check it. Whatever came next, there was no returning to silence. The truth was out. And now, it belonged to what came next.